Chapter 5 deals with investigations and problem solving. Investigations and problem solving is, of course, the heart of mathematics. We've all been doing it. You're just not aware that you've been doing it. So what is investigations and problem solving? You look for patterns. Looking for patterns. So for example, what is a pattern? Every class, the same people are late. It's a pattern. You notice that pattern. Every class, the same person scores below 30. It's a pattern. And you notice this pattern. And from that pattern, you can form a conclusion. Is this person going to the next form, yes or no? Since advanced, you can come to a conclusion. So that is chapter 5. Can I help you with chapter 5? No. It's technically on your own. I cannot help you investigate. It's something you have to do on your own. So for example, you have a number line, 2468, and I tell you, well, guess the next number that is going to show up. You would most likely say yes, 10. The question is, why? Well, since you noticed, well, the first number is 2, the second one is 4, the third one is 6. Every time I move to another number, it gets added with 2. So there's a very big chance that the number after 8 also is added with 2. Recognizing patterns. So if something happens more than twice, it's a pattern. More than twice. You can guess that most likely it will happen again and continue to happen throughout, unless something changes. There are various different types of exercises, extremely a lot. All of them are made differently, some with addition, some with multiplication, they're all different. So you have to study the pattern, and after you studied it, come up with a conclusion. I've seen some of these tests in the CXC exam, extremely difficult. Took me about some 20-25 minutes to come up with the answer. And chapter 5 is the smallest chapter, which gives the most points. Chapter 5 alone, in some tests, give about between 10 to 15 points. Only chapter 5. For every pattern, they give you 2 points. And then they come with a specific question about it. The fifth number, what is it? And then another question about if there are 500 dots, what number is it? All of that between 10 to 15 points, only that. So what do you have to do? Recognize the pattern. If you look at the first one, it's 2 squared. In order to get to the answer, it says, well, I have to do 0 squared, add 4, multiplied by 2, divide by 0. Subtract 4. And the answer becomes 4. If you go on to the following, and then to 4, I notice 2 things. The first number changes. That's what I noticed. The first thing I noticed. 0 squared, 1 squared, 2 squared. So probably when I go to 5 squared, it will be 3 squared. Another thing I noticed is the third number also changes. It goes from 2, 3, 4. So probably when I get to 5, it's multiplied with 5. And as I continue to 23, you can guess the number that is at 23. If 2 is 0, I notice that it's 2 less than the first one. Always 2 less, 2 less. So when I go over here, this one is most likely to also be 2 less. So here you have 21 squared. That is noticing patterns. And ultimately, you have the nth term, n. That means when you place this specific formula, they can ask you, give me 572 squared, and you can calculate the answer. So the n squared would be n squared plus 4 times n, and then minus 4. That is noticing the patterns. It is not something I can actually help you with. You have to actually do it by yourself. Because every single pattern is different. All of them are different. None of them are the same. (5.2). 5.2 deals with how do you get to the answer we just did in 5.1. Step 1 is you collect data. In form 4 or 5, there is a mathematics SBA, which deals with chapter 5 and 11. You have to write an investigation. So you have to know chapter 5 and chapter 11, obviously, in order to make that SBA. That SBA is super easy, takes you 1 week to finish. So the first step, what did we do? We collected data. The first number is 2, the second number is 4, the third number is 8. I'm collecting data. You organize said data. Well, from 2 to 4, it's add 2. From 4 to 6, it's add 2. All right, I'm organizing the data that I just collected. Make a hypothesis. So, it's a difficult word. You look for the pattern, what I just stated is add 2. You don't really have to know this by heart. They're not gonna tell you what is step 6 in an exam. They're not gonna do that. This is just to give you an idea how to get to the specific answer when dealing with investigations. You test the hypothesis, 2, 4, 6. So supposedly, the number after it should be 10. And then you have to prove it. How do you prove it? With the end term, the end. By this. So when you're done with the end, in most exams, it will be technically most of the time like this. I go for the end term immediately. I do 1, 2, 3, leave these two open, go for here. I spend all my 15, 20 minutes on this one. As soon as I'm done with this one, I can do the rest. Because not all of them are easy like that. So instead of spending time on 5, spending time on 23, go immediately to the end term and spend your minutes over there. If you don't come out with the end term, do 5 and 23 and move on. Remember, you get 2 points here, 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. Everything is 2 points. So it's best to always have this one, so you always have all the points. But sometimes you just don't come out. It happens. So you just go for these 2. And settle for 8 points. So an exercise would be this particular exercise. 6 belongs on page 123. Goes from A until E. And see if you can make that particular exercise. And if you can do that, you are done with chapter 5. Because that is chapter 5. There's nothing else. Notice patterns, write it, and give the answer. That's it. Nothing special to chapter 5. Yes. 123. Sorry? 6. All of them. Many line segments. So, thank you.
Dia ada yang pauze.
Kung sin. Nome tem as placas com a droga. Como ele se tem.
Ah, oké. Oké. Kita apa kalau nos
Okay. Bom. So, A. So A, you have to draw So this is the fourth pattern, and this will be the fifth pattern. Moving on to B, it says to fill in the graph. So you have something like this. It's 4 and 5th shape. If you count them correctly, it will be 29 and 36. One thing you notice as you progress, they increase every single time with 7. Every time we go to the next shape, it goes to 7. So, going to C, as I said, this is always the case. Find the 8. I looked at question D immediately, find the N. So what do you think I did? I skipped C. I went directly to D. Try to figure out D and then come back to C. So I skipped C and went directly to D because it says find the N term. The first thing I noticed was, as I said, every number gets added with 7. But looking at the first one, the number is 8. So if I have the first shape, if something gets added always equally by the same amount, means it's in that specific table. So supposedly the first number I multiply with 7, my answer is 7. But I'm not done because the total number of sticks is 8. So what do? Let me just add 1 to see what happens. Answer is 8. Alright, so supposedly I found the formula. What is the formula? N is 7 times n, and then I add 1. Now to test my hypothesis to see if it's actually correct, I go take the 3 numbers or 4 that I already made. So if I have the first shape, using the formula, supposedly my answer has to be 8. 7 times 1, add 1, equals 8. So far it's correct. The second shape, 7 times 2, add 1, supposed to be 15, but it's also correct. You go for the third one. 7 times 3, add 1, supposed to be 22, also correct. Now, it happens in certain cases, the first 3 are correct, and guess what? The fourth is incorrect. So what do? I skip 1 and move, for example, to the 8th. Or the 5th one. I skip 4 and go to 5. Just to see if I'm correct. Remember, all of these are 2 points. This entire chapter between 10 to 15 points. You 100% want to be sure that whatever you got as the end term is correct. So supposedly the 5th sequence is 7 times 5, add 1, should be 36. Is it 36? Yes. All of them are correct. So my end term is 7n plus 1. And I said I skipped C. So now I'm going back to C, since I skipped it, to spend all my time finding the n. That means the 8th term, easy. 7 times 8, add 1, 57. The last one was E. A question like E always presents. I took exercise 6 because exactly like it is written in 6, you will get it in an exam. It's always the same. Those 5 questions. And then they ask you, there is a specific sequence with 351 sticks. The question is, which term is it? And this is when you need algebra. This is going back to chapter 4. So you're saying, when I do 7 multiplied by n and I add 1, the answer is supposedly 351. They ask, what is n? And that is algebra. Do as if it's 7x plus 1 is 351. It's the same thing. So 7 times n equals 351 minus 1. So 3n is 350, and the nth term is 350 divided by 7. So the nth term is 50. This is chapter 5 in an extreme nutshell, because all the questions are exactly the same. Find the 6th term. Find the amount of sticks. What is the 8th term? Since 5.1, all exercises ask the same questions. All of them.